feel like I need holiday theme music. It is
yeah.
December 19th. This is Heidi Hatch with KUTV 2 News. This is our final edition of Take Two for the year. We're going to take a week off as we head into Christmas and the New Year. Joining me today is Representative Ryan Wilcox, and he's sitting where Maura usually sits, so
That's right.
I may call him Maura. Maura is sitting on the right, so she may start leaning right today. I don't know.
I'm excited for that.
Yes.
It's going to be big. It'll be noticeable.
Are we all ready for the holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, the New Year, everything that's happening?
Everything that's happening.
Yeah.
No, it kind of snuck up on me. It was going along, and then yesterday somebody said it's a week away. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
I have no time for that. The traffic tells me that. It's crazy getting anywhere. And I
want to tell you, we have a menorah up for the first time ever.
Nice.
in our
Yeah.
house.
How come you decided this year?
I've worked on a lot of the school security stuff.
Mm.
A lot of my friends back east who've been in those situations have lost their children are Jewish. And after the first day of Hanukkah, what happened in Australia, and then the next couple of days, that day we ordered a menorah. So we have a menorah up for the first time.
Nice.
And I got to explain to my kids what it was, why we're doing it. And now they're competing to see who gets to light it every day.
Nice.
So
Got one more day.
New Wilcox
South
family
Jordan
tradition.
did an official Hanukkah celebration this year for
Did
the
they?
first time.
That's nice. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. My mom has a menorah, and you shouldn't want things your parents have for when they pass
die,
away. But
yeah.
that's the one thing I want from my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was born in the Netherlands. My grandmother, her mother, was captured by the Nazis. All of her neighbors she saw die in the war, and her family received that from one of their neighbors they
cool.
lost. So that's like the one thing that of hers that I'm just like, I love it, and I want it someday. A little
putting
piece
a
of
Post-it
history.
note on.
Yeah, I'll tell her. So don't tell my siblings. I don't want to fight with them.
Yeah, we'll keep
Keep
that
it
on the down
are
low.
they watching?
Yes.
Are they listening right
I
now?
know, and we're in the slide. This time of year, I just start to get a mush of days. I did remember yesterday that it was my anniversary. We got married a week before Christmas. Never do that if you're planning another wedding or your kids want to do it. There's no time to celebrate because I'm always like, well, let's shake on it.
Yeah.
It was a good year. Let's do it again next year. So
How many years?
29. So next year's 30. So we should do something fun, like take the day off work, do something fun.
We're there for you. We'll vacation with you.
You will?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
let's all do it. Let's plan something tropical. Well, it is feeling sort of tropical here in Utah, not feeling a lot like Christmas. And I feel like the news doesn't feel a lot like Christmas around the corner either because I feel like the headlines keep coming. A few minutes before we came in here, there was another push alert that was just sent out that the Epstein files were released. I think we've had that same breaking news about 6 other times. So this is the release where after Congress voted, the president signed it. They said they would start releasing some of the files that had been protected before. If there's something exciting in them, I don't yet know. I also don't think that Epstein probably kept a list where he just had a list of bad friends that he had. I don't know. So
I mean, Maura does.
Mara keeps her her hit list.
I laminate it.
Dear Diary.
At least monthly.
Publishes it.
Exactly.
I hope I'm on it. Do you think there's, I mean, obviously, I hope they just release all of it and get done with it. Is there anything you're hoping that comes out of this?
Anything you've been looking forward to.
In
Of
this?
all the things I've been hoping this holiday season.
This is not on the list.
When I think of Christmas, I think of Epstein.
Right? How
What a
unchristmassy
terrible
could this
story.
be? Right?
Like the whole affair is just so seedy, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been waiting on bated breath. I guess I hope that we don't have more of those. We don't have more victims. We don't. If I'm hoping for something real, I spoke to a group, Baptist Church, Wednesday night, who had invited me over to talk about some of the terrible things going on in the schools and just kind of give them some tools to keep their kids safe. And as I think of the Epstein affair, all of the allegations, all of the people involved, all I can think is, good Lord, that can't happen again. So if there's prosecutions to be had, let's get them done and quick, and let's make sure that never happens again.
Yeah, so hopefully it does see the light of day. Probably the same page for you as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Let's get her done. Well, real quickly here, I know that the entire state of Utah doesn't live in Salt Lake County, but for me, the world revolves around it. There's now a tax referendum that's going to be happening there after the Salt Lake County Council had their 20% tax increase. They whittled it down to under 15%. A lot of people are still not happy about it. Gowd Maragani and others say that they're going to get volunteers together and start collecting signatures. They've got 45 days to do it, 45,000. Maura, is this realistic? Can they do it? Is there a will for it at this point? Or people are just like, well, everything costs more. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's really expensive to do these kinds of referendums. We haven't seen it. So the wonky part is interesting. It's interesting to see if you can just get, at this time of year, enough people to pay attention to what you want to do. I think it does show Gowd's a seasoned activist. He has run for office. He's been around the county. It's going to be really hard to get folks' attention to explain it and get it on the ballot. On the other hand, I think if you're standing in front of the average consumer and your pitch is, hey, they want to raise your taxes 14%, you might get some folks to sign. It'll be interesting to see a referendum at a county level, a first-class county. Smaller counties have done it, but they also have, in some ways, a more robust dialogue. Yeah. Sometimes when it's smaller, you know what's going on.
Was Iron County a referendum? Because I know they tried to get a tax hike, and then they're trying to cut their school days down to 4, and I'm not sure if it was
They may have been. And I think Davis hasn't Davis dabbled also in some referendums. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a hard mark to get that many signatures. And if it does happen, you've already seen some forecasting from both the council and the mayor's office that they are certainly not happy about having this discussion.
I don't know that it was a referendum in Iron County. I've talked to some friends down there. My understanding is that they just defeated the tax increase.
Okay.
So it's just a proposal on the ballot.
And it's been multiple times, and they don't know what else to do now. So that's where that's coming from.
You saw the council, to Ryan's. Yeah. It jams them up. I mean, and I don't mean that flippantly. It's like, oh my goodness, they being the government, has assessed that they need this extra revenue. So to be told no, and then yet at the same time, those constituents are not going to accept service cuts. So
we faced this in Weber County a few years ago, and I work on a lot of law enforcement stuff, and we had a law enforcement piece on the ballot that we needed extra capacity at the jail. The conversation I just had Wednesday night with these parents who just want to keep their kids safe and don't understand it, as I talked to them about what was happening, what the real numbers are in our county. We have 3 detectives on those terrible crimes that affect children. We need 7. Mm-hmm. But we defeated that particular bond and tax increase, and that's what that was going for. So we just, and then we've got salary issues over there. So we lost 6 deputies that we got to backfill now. And, so we're getting a little bit of relief from the county commission, but stuff has real, I don't know what to do with
when you talk to Gowd, he says there's probably things that people aren't thinking about where there might be overlap between cities and counties where it's like helping, upstart businesses and those kind of things you can make cuts from. Do you think there's realistic places where they could cut? They just would have to make it happen because there is overlap, or are we like living bare bones?
Yeah, I mean, he's interesting because he's selling the basis of the public conversations, which is trust, right? Like, do you trust that this is where it's supposed to go? And communication with your constituents is harder and harder because of how much other noise we get, how much other data and information we get. There's no longer weekly newspapers that are just covering local issues. It's, I think, really hard to talk to your constituents in a meaningful way. And I'm sure the representative experienced this. You'll talk to someone who is against it, and then you'll say, here, X, Y, and Z, here's why, and then suddenly they're okay. Yeah. So communication kills it, and then trust in institutions is at just an all-time low.
To speak to this, I can't really speak intelligently to the Salt Lake County budget, to be honest, as a Weber County guy.
Right.
All I can see is probably, though, what a lot of constituents are seeing and feeling here. I did read something from former council member Alvord today, and he was replaced by Carlos Moreno, who I know pretty well from totally unrelated things I've worked with him on. And, according to David, there were temporary cuts that were made last year that, because it was an election year, that weren't made permanent that could have taken care of a lot of this. So it's a pretty cynical approach. It might be accurate. Right. I don't know. I can't speak intelligently to that or not. All I know is what the vote was and what we're hearing. But to your point, it's hard to find out. It's hard to understand that for the average citizen, even those of us that pay more attention to it.
Yeah, line item going through the budget. Well, you guys have good news in Weber County. You have a new football coach, so that's exciting.
We are really
coming
excited
out of Salt
about
Lake
that.
County's high school
Yeah,
system.
did that make it on our list? That's awesome.
No, I just added that in. I thought
I
you could
love
use some
that.
Weber County news so that we weren't just all Salt Lake
Yeah.
County talking. I wanted to give you the latest on the Prop 4 case appeal right now. I think today might be the latest day for the court filings for the appeals process that's happening in the judicial. And then at the same time, I was talking to Rob Axon with the Utah GOP. He said at this point that they have 75,000 signatures, I believe, that have already been given the check mark and the okay. So they're about halfway to their point. Ryan, is this where you expect them to be at this point, or should they have been further down the road in your mind if they want to get her done?
I don't know. I mean, it's holiday season. It's a weird time to be trying to gather signatures. So, I mean, having not done that on such a large scale before, I think as long as they have it done before the deadline, I think they're fine. And so I would expect it to be done by, mid-January.
Maura, you're the queen of these things. Are they where they need to be?
I mean, not optically, but to be honest, they had the funds. So I think they're going to plow. I mean, so some of it is an art, some of it's a science, and how much you want to turn in. You don't want to mess with it too much because you don't have a lot of leeway. But I would have thought their first drop was higher. Having said that, that's not a criticism; it's an observation.
Yeah.
And they have a month left, or not? They don't have a month left. Less than that. Mid-February. So, I mean, one would suspect with the resources and the fact that they're using paid, that's just a matter of boots on the ground doing the work. I would suspect they'll get close.
Okay. Any guesses of how the judge is going to rule on this and if we're going to see the appeal go through next year?
This is not getting any less tense because the judge is saying she needs something. The legislature is continuing to point out she's delaying and waiting until the very last minute. I understand that it is expected by next week, by the Christmas holiday, that I have expected that the legislature will be in the position to file.
All right. Are you hearing any differently? We hear you have close connections to the legislature.
I have no confidence in the court meeting any deadline anymore. So
you think it's just not going to go anywhere?
No, meeting deadlines, or who knows? Like, I'm not banking on any of that after the last year and a half.
Okay. It has been a long year of who's on first? Where are we going
Is it
next?
June? No. Is it July? No.
No.
But it was whatever.
Whatever. Did either of you go listen to the three governors that were on stage on Monday? That already feels like a year ago. But we saw Governor Herbert, Cox, Governor Levitt all on the stage together talking about how we desperately need more of what we have here in Utah. In the White House, Governor Cox is like, no, not me. I'm not running. No, thanks. I've never thought of it. Is he playing coy, Maura, or is he going to be running?
Who knows? I want to give an applause line to Governor Herbert, who I think finally broke through in a very statesmanlike way with no name calling, but called all of us, Republicans and Democrats, to say we can't tolerate some of the behavior. And he came as close as I've seen a Republican come from Utah to really say with some specificity, we've got to start managing our dialogue. Good for the Elephant Club. We should give a round of applause to the Elephant Club. Great setup for them. Really nice fundraiser. Really cool to have three governors. The tone was really cool because it felt very Utah to me, but we are all, I'll put myself in the we are all having a hard time practicing what we're preaching, though. It's just a really intense moment. And so what I hope is we can't just say it. It can't be platitudes. It's got to be doing it even when it's hard. It's really easy to look at you and say, gosh, I wish you had more decorum. And then when I get passionate and worked up, I'm falling into whatever it is, name calling, really doing a lot of us and them instead of policy stuff. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I had a unique experience Monday in that I ended up having one of my kids with me. I hadn't planned on taking, wasn't supposed to be part of my day. Just life happens when you're a parent, and so I had a 13-year-old daughter with me, and on the way up the hill, and we were a little bit late. It was already going when we got there. But on the way up the hill, we were talking about social media because of things happening in the junior high, right?
Right.
This is very real parent talk. And
I feel like all adult life is junior high on social media these days too.
A
So
lot of times.
we feel your pain. Yeah.
Yeah. And, just having that kind of blunt conversation about what that means. And I, at one point in the conversation, said, we're suing Facebook right now. We're in a lawsuit with Meta right now. She's like, you are? And we talked about why and the algorithms and what they had done and how they had specifically targeted and the leaked documents, all, a little version of that. And then right when we walked in the room, we're getting our little dinner at the back and sitting down. Just as we sat down, Governor Cox started talking super clearly. And he's fairly passionate about this, right? About the dangers of social media for kids and what these companies have done. In fact, he put out a video the other day. You probably ought to play at the end of this. It's worth going through. Jonathan Haidt, the author of Anxious Generation, just tweeted it out today or posted it or whatever we call that now. And it's worth taking a look at. But speaks in it's clips of different comments that the governor has made at the AI conference. I recognize some of that, different press conferences he's given, but where he's been one of the most clear voices in the country, directly calling them out, recognizing it for what it is and the damage that it's done. And it had an effect on my little girl, right? Because it was immediately after the parent conversation. Now somebody that she's like, oh, this guy's important. Because even if, no matter how important dad is, he's just dad, right? In that moment, the governor just looked at the audience, and I don't know if he looked at her or not, but she's like, she heard it. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation that has to continue because we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the Charlie Kirk assassination and shooting on UVU's campus, when we talk about political speech and political violence, you hope that our lessons are learned from that. But we even saw this week, which I think Governor Herbert was probably reacting to, I can't even remember exactly, but the president posted on his Truth Social about Rob Reiner, and obviously a different death. He was allegedly killed by his son, but President Trump, instead of talking about, I'm sorry that he died, and this is someone people care about in Hollywood, you've watched his movies or his acting, just went straight for the jugular and bad politics and making it about me, which was the whole point after Charlie Kirk, that people were saying, okay, we're all humans, you can't just kill people and you can't be mad at them because they believe differently. And so I think it's frustrating thinking, okay, maybe that Charlie Kirk was the turning point, but
that's not what Herbert sort of spoke to. We need to start. What I don't like about us is that when we sit around and say, "Oh, I love," I'm going to do both sides. I love the world needs more Utah, but that Utah exceptionalism exempts us from straightening up too. Oh, we're intuitively more nice. No, we're not. Like until we stop pointing out that other people need to change, but we don't need to change, and that's what I liked about Herbert. He was sort of like, this lives at home, and I fall into this. What I'm trying to do is, can I see it in your tribe, but I can't call it out in mine. So until we're saying, listen, this is my guy and I love him, but that's not okay. And until we start separating and saying, I'm not going to tolerate that regardless of who's speaking, because I'm going to separate who I associate with, what my values are, what my agenda is, whatever that is, I'm still not going to accept this behavior. And I felt like Herbert got closer to that because we're all still doing your tribe better shape up, man. You guys are doing some troubling things, but I accept it. I tolerate it more from my people.
Yeah. Less tolerating.
That happens all the time. Right? It's kind of almost a natural reaction, but that's, I think, Herbert's argument.
Yeah.
We have to fight the natural instinct to constantly fight. There just is a moment. It was as appalling after Charlie Kirk's murder as I felt like with Rob Reiner, and that's what we were feeling in that room. Is yes, that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have been the response. And the natural response that you saw on social media. Speaking of, again, was all of these posts from Rob Reiner that were truly horrific. They were worse.
He was very political.
They were worse, and about very similar things, if not identical things. That does not excuse our behavior after. At some point, we're going to have leadership that recognizes that it's not the constant punching down.
Yeah, you can still mourn a loss of life even if you didn't agree with where they stood in life.
Being murdered by your own kid.
I know.
You can't get on a human level with that.
Yeah, It's been a rough week in violence. I feel like we are just in this pattern even here in Utah where we're seeing outside of the political world, we're seeing a lot of accidents. I don't know if because the weather's nice, and just loss of life, which is just so heartbreaking to me. And then on a larger scale, we've been watching Brown University, the shooting there that killed 2 students, it critically injured 9 others. 2 days later, an MIT professor was shot. Last night, there was an arrest made in that case. The suspect had shot and killed himself already. We saw the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia, where that was a Hanukkah celebration. There were 1,000 people gathered on the beach, really nowhere to shelter, nowhere to hide. And a father and son came out shooting, killed 15. I think there's 45 to 50 others in the hospital. It's tough to say at this point exactly what the intentions were. Religious, obviously, in Australia. What happened at Brown University, it's tough to say. But we keep thinking that whatever happens is going to be the last one. Maybe we'll learn. Maybe this won't happen again, and yet it keeps happening.
No, I mean, we had Christmas markets attacked all over Europe this week. It's not just the Jewish faith that's being attacked. We're sick. We have a collective illness that for some reason we think it's okay to do these things. And we have folks who are okay with that there's a level of apathy. You say we're getting used to it. There's a level of apathy that for terrible, terrible things that I just don't remember seeing in my life. Maybe we've been insulated being in America for too long, and this is the way the world's been the whole time. I don't think so. I think there's something that's different.
So America's violence propensity is much higher than the rest of the world in many ways.
And yet our violence levels are down dramatically.
Well, that's a relative, right? I mean, that's a relative standard. And so I think, again, the other thing that happens is when tragedy happens, we start looking for, the Brown event is a really good example. They have not yet identified, nor will they maybe identify the why to that. And so that we're looking for a reason so that we can then say, oh, it won't happen to me, instead of doing the hard things. I think over and over again, the last decade for me is hallmarked by us not wanting to do hard things. You see that in the federal government kicking the can down the road when it comes to finances. You see that in our health. We're not taking our health seriously. It's the trade-off with some sort of technological advancements and advancements in environmental conditions. Like, I'm not trying to oversimplify or be flippant about, but do we want to question how soft we've become, or how reliant or how willing we are to not do the hard things, whether that's hard conversations with our family members, whether that's hard conversations with ourselves about what we're doing. We in some ways expect to work less and get more. We have a lot more information. I think you have to see a correlation with our last subject, which is being plugged in does not all the time to people we don't know does not seem to have helped us with grounding ourselves. And I think there is something to violence in that, in lack of connection, in lack of purpose and understanding on our community. And so is there something to this virtual world? I'm not suggesting it's the cause and that it doesn't have a lot of benefit, but
I feel like it's the gasoline on the fire, at least.
During that decade, we're struggling more.
Yeah. There was a book I read years ago. My uncle suggested to me. It was a Steven Pinker book. I think it's called The Better Nature of Our Angels. Better Angel. I've forgotten what it is. I've got to look it up. But the premise of the book was that we were living at a more peaceful time, even though in the news it seemed like there was more violence, more terrible things going on than when you look about the world and you look at the holy wars and storming castles and raping and pillaging in cities. And so while we're seeing the violence on the news, and you're seeing a lot more of it because we're more aware of the world, that we're living in more peaceful times. That was published in 2011. And that was sort of at the start of when social media, I think, really kind of started to pop and change things in our universe. I'd be interested to sit down with him and see if things have drastically changed and if his theory is different now, if we're not as peaceful as he thought, because his conclusion was that we were living in more peaceful times. But I feel like that was still long enough ago that Columbine was shocking, and it was, something that wasn't normal. And now I feel like we have a new Columbine multiple times a year.
There's another book, sort of that brings to mind, and this is an old book by Bill Bryson, so someone I like, but is definitely left of center, called The Age of Missing Information. So this was before the social. This is before we all had these in the palms of our hands, our phones. But his basic premise is still interesting, even though the anecdotes are outdated. And he took an artificial day where he watched every TV channel, and then he took an artificial day. Artificial meaning it wasn't literally 24 hours, and went into the wilderness and sort of asked the question, didn't vilify information and didn't make wilderness better, but he was sort of questioning what is good information. And so, yes, you watched a day of the History Channel, and so it was good. It wasn't trash TV, but did you need to know all that? How did that happen? And he was pointing out that at any time we could all know what the weather right now is in any part of the world, but can the three of us go outside and look up and tell ourselves what the weather is? So what I liked is he didn't say one was better than the other, but he essentially asserted this notion of, are you being conscientious about consumption, even if it's good consumption, even if you watched a show about something, are you asking yourself what is healthy to consume?
One of the comments that I heard this week from the governor was, at the end of the social media saying he used touch grass all the time. Did you touch grass today?
Yeah.
Like, did you actually get outside? My son, it's so funny that you use that example. This morning, I took him in to the doctor. We came out, and, well, what do you want to do for the break? He goes, I just want it to snow for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's the weather say? And I'm like, look up, bud. We looked it up, and I think it's going to be too warm. We're going to get a lot of rain.
Yeah. I think if you go up to Alta or the ski resorts, you might be able to find some snow.
Yeah.
There is science. It's funny that people do say, it's like your thing to yell at people on the internet now if you think they need to get offline, is to say, go touch grass. But there's actual research about grounding and like taking your shoes off, standing on the earth, standing on the grass, that it relaxes your body, it relieves stress. Connecting with the earth is a good thing. So when someone says touch grass, actual touching grass and sitting on it or standing on it, taking off your rubber shoes is good for you. So you should definitely try it out. I want to mention a change in the legislature that we're seeing. Bridger Bolender was just elected to leadership in this last leadership session when we were making changes in House Republican caucus. He has announced that he is not running again. Do you have any inside deets? Who gets elected to leadership and says, I'm out? You've seen the underbelly and then you're gone?
It's actually a really honorable thing for him to do. He's got some new responsibilities that he wasn't planning on. And he's going to be great at that. And
I'll be the hot take, the inappropriate person.
Yeah, do it. Go all the way.
He has these remarkable new responsibilities, but I am going to argue
his
that
new
our
responsibilities?
talent pool needs him more of the 104 than the talent pool that recruits responsible people in the great state of Utah.
So what is he doing next?
It's a plea to the neighborhoods that they can find there's yet another good ecclesiastical leader that I think we need their service at the legislature. That's what I'm saying. But remember, what do I?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a very personal, decision to make.
But good for him. I mean, that's a noble. But it leaves an interesting. It is interesting. We don't usually see that, and leadership just changed midterm last term, and he came in fresh, but so did a couple of others. So, who's?
Are you in line?
Who should our Vegas money be on?
I'm not even going to start with that one. We don't even know who's going to file yet. Let's have this conversation in January.
All right, fine.
And we are going to get him back in January, so we have a commitment that Representative Wilcox is coming back before the session, so he'll have the goods for us on what's actually happening.
We're not going to broadcast on the floor with him. I thought we were going to broadcast on the floor.
We could probably get one of those fun little DJI cameras, microphones.
Do you say inappropriate things that are under your breath where we can catch?
Sometimes. Yeah, if you ever watch like a Major League Baseball game where they have one
I love when
guy
they're
mic while they're playing.
up.
Oh, it's awesome.
I love it.
Sometimes you hear things.
Yeah, things happen.
It's play-by-play, real time.
You probably don't even know what you say.
Some like terrible witness in law enforcement comes up. You might hear some things.
I talk to myself a
Just
lot.
happened.
Someone actually who works here on our web team who's been here for 2 years sent someone else over to ask me a question the other day. And apparently between the 5 and 6 p.m. newscasts, specifically between those newscasts, I come off the set back to my desk and I always whistle a song.
Oh,
I don't know
really?
what song it is. And now that she's asked me, I'm so in my head about it. I don't know, but I didn't know I whistled. And she said it's a very specific tune and you only whistle it between the 5 and 6 p.m. newscast. I don't know what it is. So that's what you would catch from me. So I've got to figure it out. When I
You're
when I
gonna
figure
let
it out,
us
I'll let you
know?
know.
Yeah.
I feel like, is it like hi ho, for off to work I go? I don't know what I'm whistling. Because once you like are asked the question of what you're doing when you don't realize you're doing it,
Yeah.
I
don't
kind
know.
of want to imitate that. I want you to do that.
I want to
at
hear her whistle.
Yeah.
Yes. I know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. So I got to figure that out. That'll be my New Year's resolution. President Trump, if you watched the other night, he gave himself a year in review, stood in front of a Christmassy fireplace at the White House. He talked about himself a lot. He did talk about closing down the border, talked about a peace deal in Gaza and Israel. He talked about how great the economy is. I do think that people will argue with him, the American people, on how great the economy is. While I do think inflation is headed in the right direction, we're all still paying a lot, Maura, for absolutely everything. Do you think he's removed from it to the point where he doesn't realize that it's bad, or where do you put that? Because I feel like he kind of was missing.
I mean, I'm not going to answer.
Stupid.
I'm going to say his secret sauce used to be dialing into the average person as a person who's never been average. He seems to be slipping a little on that. And that is interesting because it'll hurt Trump. I'm not sure if it'll hurt the Republicans. So this was not his finest strategic moment. And usually, as much as it bothers me, he's usually strategically pretty good. He did a couple of really dumb things, though. He gave short notice, which means there are a lot of Americans who turned in. I kind of did a Trump there. There were a lot of Americans who turned into 2-season finales, and they got 18 minutes of any president, and that's an 18-minute of any president. I think they go, oh, seriously. He gave a stump speech, so it wasn't newsy in terms of its content. It's stuff we've all heard from him, and we either hate it or love it, but
the only
it wasn't
new thing
new.
was the checks that was coming to the military.
But he had previewed that.
Yeah.
So, there was nothing new in that. His touting of his record wasn't new. The fact-checking wasn't new. Every story was just round 53 of the same. He frames himself up the same way. It was the first time I've started to see where I was like, yeah, if you were his press person, you were not loving either the choice of it, the late preemption, what you preempted, and the fact you didn't break news the way he usually does. He usually does a good job getting us focused on different things. And you made light of what we're seeing as an Achilles. I mean, he's in the 30s, and the Republicans are sliding a little bit on economic chops. The only thing that saves them is that when you say to that same person, do you think the Republicans are doing well, they say no, but then they say, oh, not the Democrats. So that's the saving grace there. But I just think this was a poor performance, and I'm seeing more and more missteps from someone who used to not make these.
Do you give him a better grade? Did you enjoy his 18 minutes? I was impressed that it was 18 minutes and not
that's pretty
49
short.
minutes.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't? You missed out. All right.
Totally missed it.
Well, did you catch the Vanity Fair piece?
After I saw your note about it, your text about it.
I forgot it was on the list.
Yeah.
Do you have a review of that? Was that a
interesting.
smart move for the Trump administration, or was that a bad idea?
I think that was a bad idea. If I had been their PR person, I'd be, what are you doing? Why would you do that?
Those pictures were awful.
I didn't see the pictures.
I didn't see the pictures.
just
Oh
the
my
text.
gosh, you
didn't
haven't?
see- I
I'm
didn't
pulling
read
up
all
Vanity Fair so you can see them right now. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because you know
I
when
have
you
no
open
idea
your
what it
phone on accident and you take a picture of your face and there's a double chin and your eyelids drooping and you're like, oh my gosh,
That's
those
the
are my
shot they
pores.
went with.
Yeah, so they had their photographer they hired was obviously very stylistically dialed into what he did. But Caroline Levitt there was a close up of her face, and she had obviously had injections for lip filler right before, where you could. So this is the picture they chose to post of her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like Nicole Kidman. If I
Yeah,
was going
and so you
past.
can see every pore.
She's had a lot of press
JD
lately.
Vance.
Oh, and that's not good.
I mean, that just...
These are their photos they did of him.
guys,
I know, and I'm just like, who thought this was a good idea?
So you literally let
Susie
someone
Wiles.
who hates you do all your press.
I know, and so I'm just like, these
What?
are so terrible. And I mean, some of them have kind of owned their photos and like how bad they are. I saw Marco Rubio make it as his new photo that he's using, but it was, I mean, it was obviously a choice they made stylistically to say what they thought about the administration, but I was like, dude, these are not nice. This looks like a Marco Rubio, like the kind you get, when you go to the skin doctor and you like scan your skin for a disease.
Wow.
And that was like the more flattering of the shots of him too. They had all these other weird photos. And so even if you didn't read the article and you looked at the pictures, you're like, well, those are the
Yeah,
junk.
I mean, I think you have to file this one under the belief that any press is good press.
Yeah, I know. That all began, wasn't it like a Calvin Klein's Jean thing when they said there was no such thing as bad press? It was back in like the 80s or 90s and people were going nuts over it. And they're like, hey, people are talking about it. But I think we're to the point where sometimes bad things are still bad things. So, yeah. All right. So moving on here, I want to talk a little bit about our year in review and what you believe the biggest stories of the year are. Maura, if you were to choose one story here, whether it was Utah or nationally, that kind of was the focus for you or the biggest headline, what was the big story for you?
I mean, I'll stick with Utah. I think that the Charlie Kirk shooting just was so big. If you're talking really Utah politics, I think it's the larger issue of redistricting, but within that, it's a balance of powers. It's an issue of powers. The one I don't want to forget, though, that I think it's very political, but what the unions did to get on the ballot, we haven't seen in the history of Utah.
300,000
it's not
signatures,
as sexy in some ways. It doesn't maybe even have as big of a ripple, but it was an extraordinary action that we have never seen. I mean, that number means there was a coalescing around Utahns on an issue. I also think the legislature handled it by and large by hearing it and seeing it for different maybe reasons, but I liked that call and response. But just as a sheer political action, it was the most successful campaign, bar any, that's been run at any level in Utah. And yet it kind of went a little, not under the radar, but we didn't hype it much. It didn't have sort of even the same verve that we see on the Prop 4 stuff, but it was an extraordinary political action, a campaign action that happened. And those would be my top three in no particular order.
Do you have the same top three, or do you think there are stories that were different that stood out to you from your vantage point?
No question that the story of the year, the experience, was the assassination of Charlie Kirk at UVU. I don't think any of us will ever forget that. That was certainly not in the legislature, and certainly not a lot of our constituents. The ripples for that are going to go a long way. We just this week, and we're dealing with stuff from that every week, but several conversations with the commissioner, with the new higher ed task force for campus safety. I mean, how grateful are we right now for Keith Squires up at the University of Utah? The Brown University shooting, again, that just happened. The head of campus safety at that school is the University of Utah's former head of campus safety. The one that was totally unqualified, that misrepresented his experience and wasn't actually certified, that, kind of around, he rebounded to Brown, where he had a vote of no confidence 2 months ago from his own staff in October.
So
Right.
wait, the guy at Brown was from the University of Utah?
It was our guy.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Tell me his name again.
Rodney, what was his last name?
Yeah, I know who Rodney is. I didn't realize. Somehow I had missed that.
Yeah, and he avoided like the first 3 press conferences or something over at the university. And odds are, if he had a vote of no confidence and was really bad at the job, which we experienced firsthand, that's
I
probably
felt
keep
like
him off.
after what happened at the University of Utah, that was one of those things where you had to switch businesses and
Careers.
you wouldn't be able to get another job again.
You would think, but no, that was not what happened. That's happening in real time. So to have a weird Utah connection to campus safety this week like that was a good reminder, and that was frankly part of my messages and conversations with our leadership team, is like, how grateful are we for Keith Squires right now? Is he's leading that task force for us. We've relied on him. He has turned things around at the University of Utah. Relationships with other agencies are 1,000 times better than they used to be. The professionalism up there is much better. That's on my mind.
And they had quick action at the University of Utah too. We saw a couple swatting calls, for a better word to call them, at the University of Utah, and otherwise, I think Utah State had one as well. So it seems to be something that we have to handle, and it does seem like they were handling it in a much better and different way than they had in the past. As we're heading into the new year, I know that school safety is a big issue. We've been talking about school guardians and whatnot. What do you want parents to know? Because there's been a lot moving behind the scenes, but there's also a lot of work still that has to be done for schools and to make sure our kids are safe.
Yeah. We had 3 of the bills drop today. I think it's HB 42, 43, and 44. And they're all the task force bills. They're nothing huge in those. We are going to ramp up cybersecurity standards. We've had 2 major breaches last year, really 4, between Power Schools, Granite School District, handful of others. But it's hundreds of thousands of data records of kids that were compromised by hackers. And so those are going to get better. We've got some additional support, including how that would be distributed with ongoing funding. The meeting I just left, was the sheriff's holiday party up in my county. Of course, I got caught for the last hour of that with the county security chief as we were having this exact conversation, what needs to happen. A lot of the guardians, for parents to know, a lot of the guardians are trained in most of the counties. Some of the counties are 100%. Like they're kind of awesome.
Yeah, we saw Emory County recently. We went down and shot some video with them.
Okay,
and
he
they
told
were
me about
impressive.
that. Yeah. Sheriff Huntington's been great. In fact, he's been serving on the task force the last couple of years for us. Washington County got ahead of it way early. Oh, yeah, Representative Elison calling me. Sorry,
what
guys.
does he want? He's got a bill. We'll be done in 1 minute, Rep. Hang tight.
But yeah, I guess for parents to know that we're not where we want to be yet, and we are 1,000% better off than where we were. So trainings are happening. Resources are being allocated. We just barely finished up the RFP for the alert systems for staff and teachers. It's moving.
So to just provide a respectful, slightly different point of view. I think that all these things matter, but I also think that, gun violence is the second leading cause of death for Utah kids. And so the answer is
automobile accidents first.
Yeah, but it's not presenting and
more suicides.
And I'm not suggesting that this is what the rep's working on, but introducing guns has consequences. And so just sort of talking to your kids and having them understand, I don't support weapons training in schools. I think that there is absolutely empirical evidence that shows you that America's propensity to gun violence has something to do with overall violence. And yet I think often the solution we're presenting is the inclusion of more guns. And that doesn't make any sense. I'll also say that the training standards will not, in my mind, protect your children. When you look at the rigor that police officers go through, and I think hats off to the Utah Sheriff's Association for stepping up when it was mandated that they had to. This is not what their solution was. This is a legislative solution. But they've stepped up and said, fine, we'll take some responsibility. But I have grave concerns in what I see is undertraining, not because of a desire, but when you have trained, certified police officers that have to live up to that standard year in and year out, they miss the target most of the time. I know that if I have kids in grade school, I do not want a citizen guardian in that position. Likely there'll be detriment. So I'm not suggesting, with respect, I think that the solutions are moving us forward, but for me, they have not landed on conclusions that I think make our kids safer. I don't think hardening schools, I haven't seen much data in which I'm persuaded, but part of it too is back to that first conversation. I really am hesitant to continue to say, we have a violence and we're worried about our kids. Representative, what are you doing about it? Because I look and say, no. Where did it didn't, they're solving problems at a global level. And when systems solve problems, you have to pick systemic solutions. It is ours to hear that it is not our elected officials who owe us they're the only ones that ante in. We've got to start figuring out the mental health of our kids. We've got to start connecting with our culture more. And I mean, this sounds really like platitude. It's hard to push it, but I more and more, I don't like the paradigm that is like, oh, what are representatives doing to make me safe, instead of saying, okay, what are we going to do? But I think these are good solutions, but these solutions do stress me out.
So you are 100% right, Maura, on where those problems come from. And we've seen that in education data from the last 20 years, ever since I've started looking at this, right? Like the highest indicator of student success has always been parental involvement in their education. Like it's, do they have the resources? Do they have the time? Are they getting the investment at home? Far more than any teacher, far more than any program or any system. And we're really trying to solve things. In fact, as I study these violent murderers across the country, without exception, there are major issues at home. There have been every time. So I don't know of like a really well-adjusted kid that went and was violent at school. That said, we're dealing with very real threats that we've intervened in a number of times. We've gotten lucky a number of times, and now we're dealing with folks who are threatening our schools for fun.
Right. But I don't think the data plays out necessarily that an armed response decreases the threat. Yeah, I have not seen valid data that I believe that call and response is true.
Yeah, I directly dispute that. Yeah. I've watched that a number of times, and I'm happy to see. We also haven't, you and I haven't sat down and gone through anything together. But none of these are because the NRA told us to do something or like.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I've been in gun violence for the topic for years and years as well, and I just do not believe that we can empirically show that the call and response between safety and arming really actually happens. Usually, there's as much discretionary violence happening, well-intended though they may be, because the training bar is so low. A citizen's response is not, there's a reason we have police forces. And to say that you're going to guard my students, but you don't need the same level of training makes no sense to me
nobody's saying that at all. And that's not, it's frankly a misrepresentation of what we're doing. So our first priority, what we really want from the law enforcement side is an SRO. We want an SRO that's trained.
Right, but then the newness to that is to say, but if you can't get an SRO, hey, get the janitor and we'll certify him in 3 easy steps, and then he'll come in and he will or she will de facto. You're putting the guardians that's though they're law enforcement.
I'm going to have to give you guys a whole gun podcast to solve
we
this.
We can do another one, but just so everybody knows, that is not accurate.
Well, that is my perception, and I have read the bill, and I have talked to those who are responsible for training. So, I mean, I think we disagree on approach. It doesn't mean that the approaches are bad, though. I want to get back to, you can differ and still respect that someone is solving a problem.
And trying, which is the effort that we're headed in. We are out of time for this week, but I don't want to end on a sour note of disagreeing about guns in schools because
nobody's trying to pick guns in schools.
Because we're
trying not to leave sitting ducks when there's violence.
I know we all just want peace on earth. Like if that's the one thing we could have, like the age-old thing for Christmas, I think we'd all like to choose peace on earth. Anything you want people to know as we're heading into the end of this year, starting a new year? Leave them with.
I mean, I'm just thinking. We've been talking about it this entire time. Bondi Beach, right? We had 4 officers there that didn't take care of it when they should have. Parkland, same thing. We had the officer sat outside for 45 minutes, didn't follow through.
But that hero on the beach, that guy was awesome.
Thank you.
That jumped on his back and wrestled the gun away from him.
You knew where I was going.
We need more of him.
He was like a fruit vendor or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and the 2 assistant coaches in Parkland that went in without being armed and gave up their lives. The teacher that came out of the classroom and shoved the kids and locked the door, died at the door, right? So it's not necessarily about the weapon. On the other hand, if they had that weapon, if we had the right people and they had been trained, did they have to die and did we have to lose another 20 people that day? That's what that is. And as we talk about going for peace on earth, yes, and sometimes that requires law enforcement. Sometimes that requires doing the hard things, and in order to protect those who truly are peaceful.
Yeah. Maura, anything you want people to think about as we're heading into the end of a year? 2026 is quickly approaching. That's weird to say out loud.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
I remember
so,
Y2K.
I mean, again, I'm going to keep saying it because it's a reminder to myself. We can speak globally, but it is really about monitoring yourself. I mean, until you're willing to say, gosh, I'm a little snarky that way, aren't I? And I'm not saying don't fight. I love to fight. Ryan and I have talked about, I love a good fight. I love disagreement. I even like a little passion and sparky. I think you can be respectful and raise your voice and flail your arms. But we've got to stop just being brutal with it. Like, just being dehumanizing and brutal about it. And we've got to stop assuming that if I disagree with you, you're doing something bad. Yeah. And I really am concerned. I'm a process gal, and I think our institutions are trying, and I have to, and then I can go about the business of criticizing them for the rest of the 25 minutes. But I have to say that I think most public servants that I've worked with care. Most people I work with care. Yeah. And I'm a political consultant, and I need to start leading with that, because we're leading with the bad so much we believe that we are genuinely bad. And by and large, it's not true. There's some bad apples, but even people I really disagree with, I think they're trying. I think public servants are awesome, and I want to reestablish that I think American institutions are institutions that are basically faced in the right direction.
Heidi, I think this is a good example. So what I heard from Maura just now, and what it was important that she says what she's willing to say, that she's not afraid to say it, to me here in the room, because it communicates to me, okay, I clearly need to communicate with Maura more. And if she feels that way, then there are definitely other people that feel the same way. And we've kind of recognized that. And when you live this stuff constantly, it's not possible for everyone else to understand that perspective or why exactly you do it. So we're actually, along that line, we're producing an end-of-year report, an end of the task force report that we're going to produce and publish publicly, so that people can see, all right, why did you do this? How did this come up? Where did that look like? And we're going to do our best not to compromise people's personal things they don't want shared, which is kind of difficult with all the interviews that we've done. But we're going to do our best to help that, so that whoever comes after us, I'm not going to be here forever. Who knows how long I'll do this. But I want the next law enforcement chair and the next education chair to look at it and be able to see, and the next parent that comes in and why are they doing this? I want them to know why. And if there's a better way to do it, then do it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I know that Maura cares about those kids in those schools like I do, and really just wants them to be safe and to only have to worry about learning.
And I think that's why these conversations are so important, because I think it humanizes people when you're both in the same room. You can have different viewpoints, but we know that you're going home to the Wilcox household and you're going home to your house, and we're all trying the best we can with our families.
So I want to end on a teaser that you left with us that I didn't follow up with. I don't know if Ryan followed up with this.
Did you watch it?
No, I know nothing about this, and I forgot to look it up. Do you know anything about this?
The Melania documentary.
I've seen the ads. I've been getting fed
I have
ads.
not.
I don't want to give the movie theater my money, but I may have to. Oh my gosh, I have to send you the link. So she's got a documentary coming out, and apparently it was filmed in the 20 days before they took office for the second time.
This is a real documentary.
It's shot like a blockbuster
MGM
movie.
Was the ad.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
January 30th, according to Heidi's
I'm going to leave
teaser.
you with this on my phone. I've got to see if I can get the sound on. Hang on. Oh wait.
Here we go again.
There's the lion.
You can come in. Don't worry. I promise legacy will be that of peacemaker.
Peacemaker under the fire.
This is my favorite part coming up. I don't know where my favorite part is, but the reason why I want to watch it now, they hooked me in. There's a portion where she's standing in a gold-gilded bathroom, probably at Mar-a-Lago somewhere, and she's answering the phone, and she calls President Trump, and she calls him Mr. President, and I'm like, oh, is that how she talks sexy to him, or does she call him up and call him Mr. President? And she congratulated him, but you don't know what she's congratulating him for, and he's like, did you watch? And she's like, no, I'll catch it on the news. And I was just like, ooh, I like that. She's like, no, I did not watch. She was honest with him. And now I'm dying to know what she didn't watch, because she knew enough to congratulate him.
Look at Heidi selling tickets to the Melania.
I want to watch it when it's free at home streaming on Prime. I don't know how many people will go to the theater for it. Plus, it's a little different when you have a sitting first lady making a documentary.
This is going to be an important part about my decision making.
I do not know. I don't have that much knowledge.
Yeah, it'd have to be, I guess, if they released it in theaters.
Yeah, which is the interesting thing.
Well,
so
something to
it's
think about for
different.
the new year.
Yeah, so January 30th, when you're done with like all your Christmas celebrating and you're like, do you know what I'd like? A Melania movie.
That's what the representative's going to do after the first day of the session. He's going to like kick off the session and then go.
And then
to
go
the
take your
theater.
kids.
That sounds right.
I don't know. I don't know.
You might be busy.
I might be busy. I mean, that time, honestly, during the session, you're so jealous of it with your family.
Yeah.
So I
I
doubt
know.
I'll take the whole family.
sure.
to that.
Yes. Well,
Maybe a
if anything
date
comes
night.
from this, please go spend time with your families. Try to get a little downtime. As much as I don't want you to turn off the news because that's my business's news, consume it responsibly.
After
don't
you've tuned
OD
in
on
to
it.
KUTV
Yes.
channel 2.
Yes, don't
Or at
overdose
least the
on
Take
it.
Two podcast. Yeah.
Get out and before the snow falls, stick your toes in the grass, get a little sunshine or clouds or whatever you have in there, and reboot for the new year because we're going to be going at it again in the new year, and there's new problems to solve and old ones that we're still going to be kicking the can down the road on.
And most of those can wait till January.
Yeah, they
Enjoy
can.
your family. Take time.
For
Reach
sure.
out to those you love. Let's go.
Well, thanks for joining us for this week. Give us a rating or review. Tell your friends about us, and we will be back in the new year.